Some more specific examples. Attention seeking. Remember I told you about the lass who, for those people who don't know, this was a lass that I used to work with. Lovely, lovely lass. She was a real pleasure to be with, but she would spit. And she wouldn't actually spit, she would get her saliva in her fingers and throw it. Like that. And would be an excellent shot with it. She could get you from across the room. And that behaviour, what she was trying to do was to get attention. And we're going to come back as to why people might do that. These are not, like I said, this lass was lovely. Really nice person. It's not horrible, she's not. There are reasons why people might exhibit these sorts of behaviours. For her, she was trying to get attention. Now, the attention that she'd always received previously was quite negative attention. She'd spit at someone and someone would get cross, but she'd get a reaction. And for her, all the time that she'd been around, it had been very difficult for her to get a reaction from anybody. Even it being negative was still a positive reinforcement. It still made her want to do it more because she'd get a reaction from people. She'd have power over people. So she'd be trying to get people's attention. One of the ways that we used to deal with this is completely ignore it and actually reward other behaviour and give her lots of positive attention for other things. Do you know what I mean?
Did she get better?
Yeah, she did. It did minimise. It was still something that, when she was particularly stressed, she would resort to. But yeah, it did help her to
Did you like maybe try and change like what she was like that fact that she like spat when she was angry? Did you think it would be possible to like change what she does?
Yeah, more than like. Ultimately, it's kind of a staged thing. Do you know what I mean? You are working through these things. You can't, for that person, you can't say to them no, because this is behaviour that they've learned over. This lass was 25 when I worked with her, and she'd learned that over 25 years. And it's very difficult to say to someone stop when that's the only way that they can get attention. Do you know what I mean? So, and particularly when they're stressed, so it's kind of staged. You start small. You start trying to make small improvements, and then you gradually increase that until you've absolutely minimised or eradicated that behaviour. Yeah. All right? Overactivity. People who just can't sit down, can't stand still, can't focus, can't concentrate, and things like that. There's lots of reasons why that might be. Temper tantrums, aggressiveness. I'm just going to go back one. Aggressiveness. And through all of this, I'm going to give you examples of people that I've worked with. I worked with a guy who found it very difficult to communicate. He couldn't talk, but he was very physically able. He was very physically. Did you get it?
No.
Very physically strong. He's quite a strong guy. And fit and healthy and all that sort of thing, but he couldn't talk. He got so frustrated about the fact that he couldn't communicate. People couldn't understand what he was saying, that he'd lash out. He'd get that frustrated that he'd lash out. Now again, I really enjoyed working with him. He was a nice guy. It's just, you know, it was just that, the nature of him not being able to communicate. How we worked with him was we worked with him to try and find alternative ways that he could communicate, either through sign or communication books or those sorts of things. We tried to help him to find a different way to communicate. Once he was able to communicate, the aggressive behaviour minimised again. All right? Screaming. Wandering off. This is an interesting one. You know, what exactly does wandering off mean? You know, I wander off.
All of them surely in care settings.
So it's not always
that possible
for them to
yeah,
no.
Like,
That's right.
Know, like, you know,
yeah.
a care home or a nursery or something.
But it's an interesting one because it's kind of restraints being put on people's movement that aren't there for everybody else. Do you know what I mean? Nobody tells me where I can wander off to. Do you know what I mean? And yet...
But it's for their safety, I suppose.
Well, that's it. But
So
would you accept that? If somebody said to you, okay, then no, I'm going to be with you. If I said to you, also, I'm going to spend all my time with you, 24 hours a day, for your safety. And I'm afraid you can't go wherever you want to go. Would that make it feel any better that it was for your safety? No. So it's kind of, do you remember in Unit 1 you talked about kind of tensions between rights and responsibilities? This is one of those things. It's where actually, you know, people, unless somebody is a risk of harm to themselves or to other people and is therefore detained under a section of the Mental Health Act, or they are a prisoner because they've done something wrong, then nobody can limit where they go. It's illegal. It's illegal for me to say to you, I'm not going to let you leave this college.
So in a care home with locked doors,
Yep.
They're allowed to go out those doors?
Yes, legally they are allowed to go out those doors. It's a legal hold in that what they do is they say it's not for that. It's not, you know, that it's not.
But then the care workers could argue that you're going to put yourself at risk.
Yeah,
The road
that's what they do argue. But legally you have no legal right unless someone is detained under a section of the Mental Health Act, Section 3 of the Mental Health Act. You have no legal right to restrict the movement of anybody.
That's crazy.
That's the law. Okay. Destructiveness. And self-injurious behaviours we talked about before. Okay. The client group that I worked with, like I said, there was two client groups really, were people with learning disabilities, and then I also worked with people who have Alzheimer's. And confused states. Is that okay? Everybody all right? Now, people with learning disabilities are more likely to present with challenging behaviour, and males are more likely than females to present with. Now, just in a minute I'm going to talk about why that is, why this bit is, about people with learning disabilities bit is. This bit as to why males are more likely to present challenging behaviour than females is an interesting question. And just in the general population, males are more likely to exhibit challenging behaviour than females. And it could be a cultural thing.
I think it's to do with how we used to be.
Steph, you may need a chair, or you can just put yourself on Sorry, say again?
I think it's to do with like the male and then leading they're like the ones that should be depended on rather than
right.
not being asked to.
So evolutionary basis. So is what you're saying. Well, there is an argument that that could be the case, but it's there are plenty of cultures around the world where actually that's not the case. But within our culture, it is more likely that males are more likely to exhibit challenging behaviour than females. And I don't think it's a simple answer. I don't think it's one thing or another. It's just one of those things. It just happens to be. And it would probably take quite a long PhD thesis to work out in any way, shape or form as to what's happening. Okay, but people with learning disabilities again, it's not a simple question and certainly not a simple answer, but there are three kind of factors that might have an influence as to why people with learning disabilities are more likely to exhibit challenging behaviour than people without learning disabilities. And like I said, the reason why I'm focusing on learning disabilities is because that's the area that I'm talking about here, because that's who I used to work with.